The masses are often fooled by Hollywood tropes. They believe that jealousy always wears an ugly, loud, and hostile face. They assume haters are going to scream, roll their eyes sarcastically, or stab you in the back right out in the open. But the Homo sapiens brain is wired way more subtly than that. Through the lens of evolutionary psychology, the most dangerous jealous people in modern society never show their outrage. They could be the coworker sitting right next to you, the perpetually smiling relative, or even your closest friend. Instead of attacking, they use the Trojan horse method. They smile, feign empathy, and ask questions that sound perfectly constructive. The moment you lower your guard, smile back, and try to fill the silence with explanations, that is exactly when you will hand over your priceless cognitive bandwidth to them. To decode this phenomenon, we need to ditch the cliché internet advice. Stop kidding yourself with mantras like, "Just think positive," or "cut out toxic energy." From a neurophysiological standpoint, what you are dealing with is not a terrible personality. It is a glitching nervous system. The academic literature calls this status anxiety. When you hit a new milestone, acquire something valuable, or get a major career breakthrough, their primal brain does not process that as a reason to celebrate. On the contrary, their amygdala gets hijacked instantly. It sounds the alarm because it perceives your leveling up as a direct threat to their survival and social standing. This discrepancy pumps a massive dose of stress hormones into their bloodstream, throwing them into a covert state of panic. The act of asking probing, passive-aggressive questions doesn't stem from them hating you. It is a defense mechanism to soothe their own nervous system that is currently on fire. They are using you as a biological regulator, dragging you down so their brain can feel safe again. The first and most common weapon is a microeconomic attack on your reward system. Well, how did you afford that? This question contains zero admiration. It is a classic guilt-tripping tactic. By drilling into your financial capacity, they force you into an invisible courtroom where you are either ungrateful or financially reckless. When you start scrambling to justify it, saying you got it on a huge sale or that you had to scrape by for months to afford it, you've fallen in far thet rap. You just committed the act of discounting the value of your own success to subsidize their fragile ego. You tarnished your own glory just so someone else wouldn't feel inferior. The second trap is much stealthier, striking right at human risk aversion instincts. Are you sure that's a good idea? When you are about to disrupt the status quo to start a business or change your environment, they will show up, disguised as a deeply concerned advisor. But in reality, they aren't offering any analytical data or backup plans. They are simply planting malicious code, full of doubt, straight into your prefrontal cortex. Your growth is the most brutally honest mirror of their stagnation. Instead of facing that truth, their defense system urges them to pull you back, forcing you to keep running the same Stone Age software in the safe little mud puddle they are stuck in. Once you push past the fear barrier and start setting new boundaries, you will face an identity attack. Who do you think you are these days? This is a reality-bending technique aimed squarely at your self-perception. Jealous people benefit heavily from the old version of you, a weaker version, eager to compromise, that always fed them covert psychological rewards. When you refuse to be their supply source anymore, they get angry. By sowing seeds of guilt, they want to force you to second-guess yourself and crawl right back into the narrow, obedient little box they built for you long ago. The fourth weapon is the contrast framing technique. Isn't that a bit much? When your energetic frequency and pride illuminate their insecure blind spots, their resistance mechanism instantly kicks in. They label your excellence as showing off and your confidence as ridiculous arrogance. In reality, the problem isn't that you're doing too much. The problem is that their cognitive capacity is too limited to process your growth. They don't want to upgrade their own hardware, so they demand that you throttle your own bandwidth, just so their connection doesn't lag. The final attack is an act of blatant credit theft designed to resolve their cognitive dissonance. Did someone pull strings or help you with that? When you achieve a milestone that shatters their imagination, their brain completely short-circuits to maintain the core belief that you couldn't possibly be more exceptional than them. Their brain is farseed to fabricate an external variable by attributing your success to dumb luck or a third party. They successfully protect their threatened ego while simultaneously erasing all the blood, sweat, and tears you poured into it. Why do we constantly get stuck in these self-sabotaging loops? The fault doesn't lie in personal weakness, the fault lies in our personality frameworks and the psychological blind spots we tolerate. The first group are individuals trapped in the people-pleasing loop. You are manipulated by a buggy reward system, where you believe social safety can only be bought through concession. Your unconditioned reflex to toxic questions is to defend yourself and distort the truth. Just to protect the other person's feelings, you turn yourself into a willing victim in your own story. The second group are the perfectionist machines, aggressive go-getters but possessing highly sensitive egos. Your amygdala is easily triggered. When provoked, you dump all your stress hormones into arguing, desperately trying to prove your competence. You don't realize that the second you let the opponent dictate your heart rate and breathing, you have already lost the power play entirely. The third group are the avoidance experts. You rely on the flight survival mechanism to deal with pressure. You smile in resignation, stay quiet to keep the peace, but you let those covert sarcastic remarks completely ravage your cognitive hardware and your self-esteem. Compassion and empathy are not universal cure-alls, and they absolutely cannot be used to patch up someone else's inferiority complex. Continuing to explain yourself or blowing up in anger only hands the opponent a toxic energy supply, reinforcing their manipulative behavior. The actionable solution here is to invert the cost-benefit ratio, applying behavioral economics to completely cut off this energy supply. You must establish a cold, ruthless psychological distance from those who intentionally violate your boundaries. Next time, if you suffer from chronic people-pleasing and get interrogated about your finances or your achievements, freeze every instinct to justify yourself. Shut down your defensive language system. Look them dead in the eye and drop a single, razor-sharp response. I worked for it. Do not add absolutely a single unnecessary detail. The strategic silence following that sentence will create maximum psychological tension, forcing all the pressure and awkwardness right back onto the person who asked the question. If you fall into the easily triggered group and get challenged with an identity-attacking question, do not waste your neural energy explaining who you are. Freeze your facial expression. Neutralize all manipulation attempts with the naked truth. I am becoming exactly the version that I am meant to be. For those complex, intertwined toxic relationships in your corporate network or family tree where cutting them off entirely is impossible, activate the gray rock mechanism. Strip every ounce of emotional value from your responses, using blunt, painfully boring phrases. When the jealous person's brain realizes it can no longer mine any fear, confusion, or anger from you, their reward system will automatically disconnect. They will naturally remove you from their prey list. Mental evolution and maturity always come with elimination costs. You were not programmed to be a rescue station for other people's defective nervous systems. Stop trading your precious cognitive bandwidth to pay off emotional debts. Yo didn't borrow do. Trying to shrink yourself down to fit into the narrow worldview of the masses is a crime against your own brain. If your energy and breakthroughs shatter their false sense of security, that is a flaw in their hardware, not yours. Stop defending yourself right now. Re-establish your behavioral boundaries and funnel all your digital resources into Rodifin the game.